Yeah, late last year, we decided that we were going to help our customers address the layer of security that many of them, if not most, were not addressing at all. For years, we've sold firewalls, UTMs, and the endpoint security software, many other security products. However, as we've been reminded today, and what we all knew already, hardware and software is not enough. Each user needs to be aware of the threats that we face, and each user needs to be aware of their role in protecting the environments, the infrastructure that they use every day, and that their businesses rely on to continue to do business. So to fill that need, we have created an end-user security workshop. Since we started offering this workshop, I've spoken to well over 1,000 end users, and we've provided them with the information they need to help keep their environment safe. A number of our customers have actually made this workshop mandatory. They're requiring each user to go through it. And as new employees are hired, they can attend one of our quarterly workshops that we offer within our EarthBend office in our training room. And so we continue to train, and if someone wants to come back for a refresher, that's also an option for them. We offer it on a quarterly basis, and more often if we need to. Again, we offer this workshop on site, and we'll run it as many times as we have to get every employee the opportunity to attend the workshop. Actually, in one case, with one of our customers, I did the workshop 4 times. In the first session, the CEO of the company was present, and after I was finished, for the next 10 minutes, he was making IT policy changes on the fly. There was a lot of things that changed within that company that day, as far as what was allowed to do and not to do in corporate computers, and so he made a lot of changes right then and there. So, because up until that point, he just wasn't aware of the risks that they faced, and how by just making a few IT policy changes, how he could really lower his risk to the organization. So a lot of things were changed that day. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview here, a rough outline of what we cover. We cover many of the things that you've heard about this morning, so we'll just run through that quickly. I ask this question at each session, what is the weakest link? And I always get the correct answer, which of course is the user. As again, we've been reminded of today. I talked to the users about the different layers of security and how it's best in layers. Every organization has some kind of firewall in place, has endpoint security software installed, but then I point out to the users that they are just as important as those, if not more important, than all of those devices and software that's in place. So I make them aware of the fact that they are a critical point, important part of IT security. We talked specifically about threats and losses. We talked about malware, viruses, and ransomware, which we've heard a lot about today. We talked about and explained what can be lost. What can be lost in a breach? Data, financial loss, identity theft, all these things that an organization can lose. So I also explained to them how these threats are propagated. As we've been reminded, email is probably the most common through the phishing and spear phishing attacks that we've heard so much about today. Web browsing, social media, and the use of external storage such as USB drives and things like that. So we talked specifically about those and how this will work. Web browsing, we talked specifically about drive-by websites and drive-by downloads, so they understand the risk. We talked about spoofed websites, how to avoid falling victim to one of those. And just tell people, don't visit sites you don't need to visit. If it's not work-related, stay off of it on your work computer. Use your personal device to get to those things. Application and plugins. The reason I need to talk about this with the users is in a lot of organizations, the users do have more permissions than they need on their workstation. And so many of them can install applications, they can install plugins, and a lot of those applications and plugins are full of vulnerabilities. Let's look at Flash, for example. How full of vulnerabilities that is. Sometimes there's three patches a week that come out. If the user doesn't need that, then we don't want to have it installed, and I point that out to them. And if it is something that they do need, then we talk about the importance of making sure it's patched. Of course, this should fall on the responsibility of the IT department, but if the IT department doesn't know something is installed, it's pretty hard for them to keep it up to date. So I just make sure the users are aware that if they do something on their own, install something they shouldn't, that they can cause the company to put the company at great risk. So I want to make sure that all of them understand that. We talk specifically about email threats because, as we know, it's the most common method used for an attack. We talked about the attachments, which of course was an EXE coming in, of course, was kind of the original attack coming through email, but it got more sophisticated with the links within emails, the links within attachments, and then of course the fake emails where we social engineer someone into doing something that they shouldn't do. So we talk specifically about those things.
No problem there.
Then we talk about everyone's favorite subject in great detail. We talk about passwords. Most users, you guys would agree, hate passwords, do they not? They don't want to deal with passwords. I've actually went into organizations as part of a security or a network assessment and found the passwords to be blank for every single user. I've actually come across that situation not that long ago. So it's still out there and still happening, where it's not being enforced. So we talk about the importance of passwords, and of course, all these best practices plus many other best practices, some of which we heard this morning. The two-factor authentication was talked about a lot. We stress that if they have that option, even on personal things, that they should use that, and we talk about that. And you guys, most of you are aware of the other password best practices, and so we make sure the users know that. We talk about connectivity. What we have found is some of the SSL VPN solutions, for example, that our customers have, are very, very easy to install and set up. And so users are tempted to then take that software and install it on their home PC. If there's nothing in place to prevent that, now we have a home PC that everyone at home uses that has a direct connection to the corporate network. And so we've run across that situation. And so we talk about why these users need to be aware and not do things they're not supposed to, even if they're allowed to, even if our IT department isn't keeping things locked down as tight as they should, because it is hard, especially in small organizations, to think of everything, to do everything. We try the best we can, but it can be difficult. So I try to make the users aware of the fact that they need to really be careful and not go off and do things on their own. And also about personal devices, not attaching those to the corporate wireless networks if allowed. Hopefully, again, we have those locked down so they can't, but if we're in a situation where they can, I try to make sure they're aware of the dangers of doing that. And then, just reiterate, only do remote access from corporate managed devices and over corporate approved connections. So I stress that to them so they understand it. Another thing that I find interesting when working with users is they sometimes don't know where their data is actually stored. They don't know if it's on the local hard drive, they don't know if it's on a file share. They just open up Word and save it. They really sometimes don't know where it's going. And so I stress the importance of understanding where your data is so that it can be protected. Protected in many different ways. Protected from a backup perspective and protected from a theft perspective. But if they don't know where it is, it's pretty hard to protect it. So we talk about how important it is to understand where the data is going, or where it's being stored, rather. And we talk about the use of external devices. It's pretty easy to take a thumb drive to your home computer, plug it in, and bring it to work and plug it in. And of course, we talk about the dangers of doing that, and so users are aware they should not use the same devices on personal computers and at work. And then the loss of stolen computers. It's, at least where I live and here I live, we've had a lot of garage break-ins recently, mainly sometimes through open doors, sometimes not. Even in a small town near where I live, if you left a work computer in your car, even in the garage, it's at great risk. And this happens all the time. Hopefully, the hard drives are encrypted, but how many people are doing that right now? When that question was asked earlier, there wasn't very many hands that went up. Hard disks are not being encrypted like they should, and so that data that's on that laptop, of course, is at great risk because it's not being protected the way it should be. So we make the users aware of that. And then we talk specifically about threats, so they understand the definition of what threats that are out there. The hacking, the data leakage. Data leakage can happen accidentally or on purpose, as we know. People sending emails out that they maybe went to the wrong person because the wrong email address came up in their cache. This happens to a number of us, right? So we sent an email out. I just received one a few minutes ago that was not intended for me. It was asking about it was a budget question for someone who has the same first name as me. It was one of our customers. So that data got leaked to me on accident from a user who wasn't paying attention to who they were actually emailing. So I use all those examples. I show people those examples so they understand how that can happen and what the risk is there. Within our organization, we started to automatically encrypt outgoing email that was flagged as confidential. And it's amazing, I didn't tell anyone about that on purpose because I wanted to see what was being leaked. Because I knew I would get a question from some of the users why it was being encrypted. So I did that on purpose just to see what would happen. And so if it was being marked as confidential, should you really be emailing it? If it's not, if it's truly confidential. So those are some things we talk about. We explain what social engineering is. everyone has experienced that in some way, it seems like, at this point. And scams are becoming more common. Ransomware and extortion, not only encrypting the data, but threatening to post it if you don't pay. We talk about that. Corporate account takeover, focus that with the accounting folks to make sure they understand the risks that they have. And then the CEO fraud. I'm sure all of you see those every week. Do you not? You see those emails every single week coming into your organization. Someone trying to convince your someone in accounting to transfer money. We see those every single week. We see those emails. So then we tell the users, how can you help? And so all the things we talk about, we leave them with a handout, either electronically or on paper, where they can be reminded of the things that we talked about and reference it. We give them information about how to look at an email and be suspicious about it. So we leave all the information with the users so they can reference that in the future. Our goal is to make them a human firewall, make them a good last layer of security within the organization, so that if a threat does get through the other mechanisms, or of course to prevent the spear phishing that we've heard so much about. So that's what we try really hard to ingrain into their minds as a computer user on your network. So I tried to go quickly to make up some time. We're running a little behind. So I do have a little story to tell first. I was recently at one of the big box hardware stores here in town. And I had a question about one of the products I was looking at. So I went over to one of the computer stations where there's generally an employee station. In this case, there was. And as I was walking up to the computer, I noticed he was putting a USB device into the computer. And so I had to lean in to see what that was. And so I leaned in, and it was looked like a fan. And I jokingly said to him, all of us need to have one of those. And he looked at me and said, yeah, I found it laying on the floor over there, so I wanted to see what it would do. So, apparently, in order to breach a large big box store, all we have to do is put a USB device on the floor with a fan on it, and we're in. Hopefully that USB port was locked down. If we do see something in the news in the next few weeks about a breach of a big box hardware store, I might have just witnessed it. So that was very interesting to see. So if this looks like something that you think your users benefit from, we've heard a lot about from a lot of the presenters how important this training component is. Can I ask how many are regularly training their users today? How many are making it mandatory that they go through a training of some kind? There's not very many hands going up. So it's something you really need to be doing in some fashion, either with us or someone else. It's a very, very important part of your security. Maybe I would say the most important, because it doesn't matter how much money we spend on all the other stuff. This is a critical part. So come check us out. We run this quarterly in our office. If you want to come check it out to see if it's something that you benefit from, come join us. Check it out for yourself. And then if you think it's something you want, we'll set up a time to come on site and do it for you as well.